All right, we're back for another Shop Class podcast. It's right before the holiday. This is end of the year. Well, it's not the school year, but the holiday year. Very cool. So we got a huge night. And let's start with our special guests. We got Jason Erdreich. I knew I was going to mess that up. I'm sorry.
That's something we should have practiced beforehand. I mean, all this time chatting, we didn't go over that, but that's awesome. Thanks,
Okay.
Mark.
Jason's coming to us from Madison, New Jersey. He's a teacher extraordinaire. He's got it covered, man. He's got so many resources. He's basically like a shop teacher for shop teachers. This is the Shop Class podcast. He's the shop teacher. So very cool. We also got Rafi Bernstein coming to us live from his workshop. How you doing, Rafi?
What's up, guys? It's actually the school's workshop, Makerspace. Hey, Jason. Pleasure.
Yeah. Hey.
We got Duke Lazowski coming to us from East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How's everyone doing?
All right. He's got his laser Shop Class podcast engraved piece of wood. Right?
Yeah, that my wife only lets me keep up for this 2-hour episode.
Then he takes it down. We have Mark Willie, and he just came off of a huge live show on LinkedIn all about off-site dirt, which is when they make whatever they make off-site for the building industry, building science, and bring it there. But it's not just cheap manufactured stuff from the 70s. It's energy efficient. How you doing, Mark?
I'm awesome. Great to be here on Shop Class Podcast.
All right. We got Matt Bloomquist. Bloomquist is a star. He's a shop teacher that he doesn't play by the rules, man. Classroom, he's like, nah, we'll just build a house every year. So they actually go to the job site, and that's where the class is. So they build a house. How you doing, Matt?
Good. I'm actually sitting here working out the details for the next house build, actually. So
nice.
That's what I'll be listening, but looking at a different screen here tonight.
No problem.
It's also Harbor Freight winner this year.
Yeah, we just got the invite for the trip this summer too.
Oh, cool. Oh my God. Where's it going to be?
LA.
Whoa. Nice. Yeah. And we got someone new in here. We got Eric Westland. Duke, you want to introduce him?
Yeah, Eric Westland was my online college professor. He's a former teacher, and he also he retired. Missed it so much, he decided to go back as a college professor, and he does a lot of tech ed type classes, Tinkercad, 3D printing class I'm taking in the spring. So a lot of the hands-on stuff that we're used to, and his classes are very enjoyable and formatted nicely. Look at Mark Willie's beard is shorter than it normally is.
Oh, man. Eric, thanks for joining us. Oh, you're muted, Eric. That's okay. There's a bunch of buttons on the bottom. And we got Mark Bowser.
There we go. How's that?
Oh, there you go. How you doing, Eric? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. Thanks.
Okay, how'd you find us?
Through Duke.
Yeah, I just sent an email today.
Yeah. I'm just not. I've been out of. I was in the classroom for 38 years, and then.
Oh my God, thank you. Wow.
Yeah. Most of them were good years, so no need to thank me. Wouldn't have done it, any other way. But and so been retired since. Retired 6 years now, and so I just do these online classes to to stay in the game. It's a lot of fun.
Nice.
I have a lot of great students, like Duke, and I don't have to go to any faculty meetings. So
Nice. There we go.
Yeah,
I've been to 18 years of faculty meetings. There was only one meeting that was good. When they asked us if we want to, is anybody in the crowd want to create a new class? And I was like, what? Yeah, right here.
yeah.
And that's when we did the electric car class.
I mean, I imagine most of you have been like me. I mean, part of what I enjoyed was I was usually kind of a one-man band. I was the only person in my building that, did what I did. So I had a lot of freedom to do it. And as long as the kids came through the door, nobody bothered me. I spent a bunch of years teaching math too. And it just wasn't as much fun. So,
well, the nice thing about being a shop teacher is that you kind of make your own curriculum. And luckily, that actually brings us to tonight's guest. Jason is not just a shop teacher, but he really is supportive of all shop teachers, and he teaches other shop teachers. And, you know, the thing about working by yourself and being a one-man band is that, you know, you're in danger of them closing the school, closing that part, or work, or kind of like you're working by yourself, you know. So it's not easy to do something like that. So I'm sure you were pretty good at it, but not everybody can like play the drums and guitar and the harmonica thing around their mouth while holding the cup at the same time. You know, not everybody can do that. So we want to grow the shop teacher experience. We want to grow the connections. And so that's why we have the shop teacher podcast. So let's get to Jason. All right. So Jason, let's go to the first question. Duke, you want to ask him the first question we always ask every guest?
I thought you were gonna ask it sooner than I thought. I heard you were straying away a little bit. I'm like, well, I might have to pull him back in. Jason,
Yes.
you have shop class growing up.
Yes, I did. So I grew up just outside of Philadelphia. So I went to school in Bucks County, PA, if anyone's, you know, familiar, like Northeast Philly kind of area. And I did. And to be honest, I didn't realize it was shop class at first. So I was in middle school and I had an 8th grade industrial arts class. That was pretty classic. You know, we did like the balsa wood bridges or whatever. And then it was over. Like it was in and out, and nobody explained like, oh, you're here to act like an engineer and you're here to do this and you're here to solve problems. It's like, hey, you're here, build me a bridge and then we're going to crush it. And it was cool, but it didn't, you know, it didn't sit with me. And then I went to a pretty fantastic high school with a million shop classes. Auto shop, welding, graphics, like old school silk screen printing, wood shop. Like it was fantastic, but I didn't know about any of them. Like I went my freshman year, sophomore year without even knowing classes existed.
Wow, that's funny.
Because that middle school teacher, he didn't say like, hey, if you like this, sign up. So freshman year, I took cooking and sewing, home ec, which was cool. And then sophomore year, I took like creative writing or something, you know? And then finally, I saw a kid driving a go-kart outside. I was like, that's awesome. Like, oh, you know, where is like, oh, we built this in auto shop. I was like, we have that here in this building. And it was a big building, you know, it was like 2,400 kids. So it was a big school. So it was easy to not know what was going on in the school, you know? And then I signed up for literally every single class I could fit in my junior and senior year. And I took everything and just kind of, you know, completely fell in love with it. And that's, you know, it obviously changed my outlook and where I'm sitting now for sure. And, yes. So the answer is yes, I had it, but I had to find it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so funny that you didn't find it right away. Yeah, the guidance counselors, you know, sometimes it's like hit and miss. It's just totally random.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, I mean, listen, it was partially my fault. Like like when I sat down in that 8th grade meeting saying, oh, what do you want to do? I still said like, yeah, I don't know. Right. It was just sign me up. I might have said, well, what's easy? Cooking. Right. Like it was probably my fault as a 9th grader going in. I definitely wasn't motivated. You know, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, outside of school, I was really into, I mean, Ron, you know, I was working on cars and like building and working in garages and stuff like that. So always tinkering. Right. But I didn't connect the dots that I could do that at school and I could learn and I could gain that, you know.
What high school? That was in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, it was Council Rock High School, Council Rock School District. So there's
Okay.
two, there's North and South. And they're, you know, they're phenomenal district for sure. Like I definitely, again, once I found the program, I mean, it really guided me to where I wanted to be. And then actually when I was a senior, I was able to work with them and say like, hey, I almost missed you, right? So they went through a whole campaign. This was kind of before the STEM thing, right? So, but they went through a campaign where they, you know, put signs up, and during like class picking season, they'd put the go-kart in the lobby and, you know, try to just get kids to see that like, hey, these classes exist, you know, which is important for sure.
So the go-kart hooked you.
As somebody who was coming from engines and tinkering and, you know, working on that stuff, it hooked me. It's definitely not it for every student. But then, I mean, with that, the cool thing about that school was, yeah, it was such a big department. I mean, they really did cover so many aspects of technology in shop, right? Which I think is pretty rare, where you'll have a school that does everything from auto to woods to computer science to graphics. I mean, I think every town usually has something. If you work in a town that's a lot of working parents, you probably have those types of autos and whatever. If you don't, then you might really only have that computer science portion, right? So I think it was a pretty rare school that covered everything from welding to woods to comp sci, so they really had the opportunity to just grab like the interest of the entire student population, right? And I think you hit it on the head where the teachers couldn't do it alone. They had to count on the guidance counselors to really help make it happen, where if a student says, oh, I want to be an engineer, we don't just say, all right, great, go take AP physics. We say, all right, take AP physics, but also we have a robotics class downstairs, right? Like you can't just load up on the APs to help you get to school. Let's load up on the skills as well. And I think that's something that, I'm still in contact with some of my old teachers, and they've definitely worked on improving since I've been there. And they've been able to kind of like, with the whole STEM movement and the comp sci movement and that, they've definitely been able to capture greater interests because that certainly helped these types of programs that are a little bit more, diverse with what they can offer. But it's a challenge, right? To get the kids in there. And, we have the same challenges in my school for sure.
Yeah, I think the misconceptions of what shop class is are still around. You still got people saying like, well, if you're not going to college, then you got to go to shop class. Like people still talk like this. And I'm just like, I interviewed a NASA engineer, and she had a model rocketry class that was kind of like her shop class. And she's never said, well, I stayed away from the shop classes so that I could go to college. She never said that. She said, embrace the shop classes. And that's coming from, she's like a coordinator. She's in charge of like welding the fuselage, and then also humans being supported in space and the space suits and like trajectory and launch timing. And like, she's like a coordinator, and like, she's worked her way up over the last 20 years, and she thinks that shop classes are important. So I'm going to go with her over, like when someone's like, the shop class, they put it aside. I'm going to go with the NASA engineer on this one. And she recommends shop class,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Now,
Sure.
Is it similar to like Livingston, where there's like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 shop classes, or is it even bigger than that?
Yeah, I mean, to compare it to schools in New Jersey, I would say Livingston's a pretty good benchmark, especially because Livingston, one thing that stands out to me is their theater program's insane too, right? And I know in Countstock they had that, where they had like a class that basically built the theater and things. But again, because it was interesting because it was 2 schools, right? So you have 2 high schools, each with 2,300 kids, right?
Whoa.
And only maybe 4 miles from each other, which meant that the collaboration and the competition like inter-district was also kind of insane.
Oh,
right?
interesting.
Where I know that one thing I struggle with is I'll challenge my students to build a solar powered car or whatever, and then we compete against each other. But then when I try to find, hey, let's have a competition. All right, well, let's try to coordinate between my town and your town and how we're going to get the kids there. It was really easy to say like, all right, sister high school, fellow colleagues, some teachers traveled between. So some were the shop teachers in both schools, right? And they could just pull their classes together and do this cool stuff. I think it kind of reminds me, I think more of more South Jersey, like the regionals. I'm thinking of like Howell and like Freehold, and how there's multiple schools within a regional high school district where those teachers, I think, they try to coordinate and they try to collaborate and they try to offer these huge programs spread across, really big schools. I think it was a lot like that, but it wasn't. It was one district, one K-12 district. But then Pennsylvania, it's a bit different than New Jersey, especially, every state does things a little differently, but cool program.
I like what you're saying about competition, because I use that a lot in my classroom lately, and it really cuts the fat. Like the kids instinctually want to win. So it's kind of like sports, and there's a kind of an overemphasis on sports, but they got that ingrained in them, and plus it's in the DNA. So if you could use that for, especially like, it's pretty obvious with robotics, you want competitive stuff. That's interesting to have two high schools in the same district,
Yeah.
Now,
okay. Same thing, Ron.
What's that?
We have the same thing, East Stroudsburg North and East Stroudsburg South.
Oh, no kidding. I didn't know that.
Yeah, our district, we got a bunch of people moving in from like New York City and New Jersey, in the, early to late 90s, and then 2000s after 9/11, and the schools just got too small. When I first started teaching, our school was at like max capacity. Like the 2 tech ed rooms were constant. There was 3 tech ed teachers, 3 middle school teachers, constantly revolving. So they built another district, whole other district,
Wow.
middle school and high school on the other end of the district. So a
Interesting.
lot of schools have done that. Like Bridgewater, they had a east and a west for a little while. Now they're back together as one.
Huh.
Yeah.
No kidding. And does it work out well for you? Like, do you ever do any competitions, or does it make it easy to do stuff like that?
Well, I was teaching at both schools for a little while, so it was nice having 2 teams. But
That's cool.
yeah,
Interesting.
but no, we still run a robotics competition coming up. We have a VEX robotics competition, and so we have schools from we have a bunch of elementary schools coming to the competition. Schools from outside of Philly, Downington is coming to it, and so there's some competition within the schools and also outside of schools, because I tried to have one in the Poconos to promote the robotics, because it is very big in the outside of Philly, but there's not much Northeast PA. So we get a lot of Philly schools that come up.
Interesting. That's cool. Huh. Never thought about
Let,
that.
let me ask you guys a question. What the biggest high school I taught in was 3,000, and in 4 grades in just north of Seattle, and this was basically Boeing country, where there was a huge need for. I had my best friend up in Seattle is a retired aero engineer. He left Boeing like 30 years ago because there were just too many idiots. I mean, he's super brilliant. He's been featured in Fortune magazine, and but as a courtesy, and just because he thinks it's kind of fun, he teaches at the University of Washington. He teaches a 1/4 course for the seniors. And they work as a group. He gives them certain design criteria, and they have to design an airplane together, and then they test it in the wind tunnel there. And he laments to me every single year about how these graduating seniors in aero engineering, all really smart kids, don't know which end of a bolt to put the nut on, because they've never had a class where they had to actually use their hands in anything. So anyways, my question is, when I was at this high school, and I left it in 2004 to go teach overseas, and the boot that was always on our neck was that in the high school course requirements, that if Johnny still doesn't know what fractions are for, so we're going to add another year of math to the graduation requirements, or we're going to, and now they required 4 years of English, and Johnny could give a rat's popo about English. He wanted to do things that interested him. My question is, has the pendulum been swinging back the other way?
This actually brings up one of my biggest challenges, and I will say that it's definitely, I think it's driven less by state and more by inter-district administration and people, because I'll have students that are, as an elective, I'm the first thing that gets cut, right? So if a student needs an additional study skills class or extra support in math or whatever it is, well, where do we fill that block? You cut the elective, because you can't cut gym and you can't cut, whatever it is. And I'll often say, well, hey, this student that's, struggling in English because they're not into it, because they have a disability or whatever, they're thriving in my class. And if we consider what they're going to do as a career, it's me. Like, they're not going to go be an author. So let's talk about how can we really support this student. And it was always, well, you have an after school program, right? But then that kid can't come to me after school because they're making up a million other assignments because they're not doing their work in their other classes, right? Because in their other classes, they're trying to sneak in what I was teaching them. So, recently, I think there's been a shift where it's not just, hey, what do we have to do to hit this mandate? It's, well, what do these students really need? Because I mean, coming back from the whole hybrid learning thing, it's different. We're trying to really support these students. So I've gotten endless support. And even where if a student needs to meet with a counselor or something, oh, you know what? Let's not take you out of that coding class, that 3D printing class, because you really love that. It's okay. Let's take you out of this math class, your band lesson or whatever. And they're really trying to plan it. At least, again, it's in my school, and I think it's driven by specific school leaders more than a state policy or something, where it's, you know, this kid might be a computer programmer, so let's sacrifice something else to get them as much as that as we can to really support it. So the kid wants to come to school every day. So if they don't want to come to school, then they're never going to thrive in, you know, anything else, right? So I think it's a challenge, though. Definitely a challenge.
Yeah. So, you know, just to add to that for Eric, I would agree. Jason, you're very careful in saying like, oh, well, you're not sure, but in your district, it's working because of good supportive people. It's very similar in that I've found in all the schools that I've observed and also taught in, is that it just comes down to chance. You got a shop teacher who's driven, you know, like a fire is under their butt. You got an administrator that says yes to something. You got a kid who spends more time, and you got a counselor that gets it. And then bam, you get it. You get an engineer for life, you know, and then it comes back tenfold, you know. That NASA engineer I was talking about, I know it's just one example, but it's a good one. She was doing a model rocketry program because there was a teacher that decided that this would be cool. It was an extra program. You know, it's not state required. So I would agree. So this stuff is not going to come from the state, although the state in some cases is supportive and some cases just sort of absent. So it's not going to come from that. I think it's going to come from people on the ground. It's going to come from the shop teachers talking with administrators, showing examples of what's possible. You know, like for instance, my principal came in today randomly because I said, hey, come by anytime. And he came by and I gave him a tour and I let him self-guide himself on a milling machine. I have this new thing I do with lean manufacturing where you can self-guide on the machines, you know, infographics, all made by the kids, you know. And so now he goes away having at least some understanding what a milling machine is. And he might connect the dots further down the road when we start firing up the Tormac CNC machine. What is a CNC machine? This is not something in everyday life. Although it's behind the scenes in everyday life, it's just like, you know. So yeah, good. I agree with Jason on that answer, and Eric, good question. And it's an endless old adage. Like if you go to a tech ed meeting, the first thing they bring up every single meeting is, how do we get more shop teachers? How do we get more shop classes? What do we do about low enrollment over here? And what do we do about not filling positions over here? What do we do about support? It's never going to end because it's an elective. And even if it was a mandate, you just need like really good shop teachers and good communication. So, you know, but not every shop teacher wants to go all above and beyond. So this is where we are. If you're looking, just look at this screen. We got 8 people on this thing. All 8 people are above and beyond supporting shop teachers here. So we got a good crew going, and I think there's a good movement. STEM is cute, but it's not the full story, you know? So speaking of STEM and industrial arts and whatnot, Jason, you're kind of like a car guy too, right? So
yeah, a bit. Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah. Now, what I was going to ask you next is like, how did you go from that high school experience to where you are now?
Yeah, that's a good question. 2 things. One, I had an absolutely incredible shop teacher in high school, and I was really into graphic design. So I was kind of running my own little graphic design company out of my parents' garage. Logo design, some silk screening, and my graphic arts teacher was just a total traditional guy. Like he taught me offset printing, even though that they didn't really have it in the school anymore. And it was awesome. And I said, like, yeah, I want to do this as a living, so I don't really need a degree. Like, this is cool. I'm good. I'm out. And he didn't pressure me. He didn't say that's ridiculous, go get a degree. But he did say, all right, well, let's talk about overhead and let's talk about how much ink costs, and like just really kind of broke down the numbers. And he said, all right, so when you don't sell 1,000 t-shirts, what are you gonna do? And I was like, yeah, I don't know. And simultaneously, there was a student teacher who was only a couple years older than me, who was a TCNJ shop student, a tech ed student from TCNJ. He's like, you know what? I can teach graphic design. You teach people at the school. Like, I was kind of the lab tech assistant. Like, try it. Go visit TCNJ, which was maybe 35, 40 minutes from my high school. So the student teacher took me to go visit TCNJ to check out the program. And it was awesome. It was really cool. And they said, like, listen, you can still run your t-shirt company, but you also might want to teach people. And I loved it. I mean, I just kind of felt like I, was good at it. I was good at kind of guiding people through it. And I loved having a friend come and like, print 1,000 t-shirts overnight and showing them how the silkscreen press worked. And I kind of just wanted to be a graphic design teacher, but because of my automotive and my mechanical passions, I sort of just fell in love with the whole thing. So it was really just those two people. It was my shop teacher who just kind of walked me through the real parts of life in a way that kind of made sense. And then that student teacher saying, like, listen, I didn't know what I want to do either, but I kind of fell into this and I think you'd be good at it. Let me show you. And those two people made me apply to college. And here I am. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
That's
So it's
incredible.
basically people going above and beyond. Go ahead, Rafi. Sorry, go ahead.
I went to SVA, to the School of Visual Arts, to learn graphic design. I graduated from SVA, I should say, with graphic design and 3D graphic design. 3D is the program building stuff, not 3D computer graphics. And we didn't learn that shop teacher that taught you that lesson of overhead and pricing and all that. What a valuable lesson that I didn't even learn in college. I mean, I was a senior and I got a job and I was literally, excuse me for the term, but caught with my pants down because the client was like, okay, what do you want for a logo? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. He was like, how much do business cards cost? Oh, I don't know. And it's like, how do you go about even going to from the design, from the computer to a printer and pricing things and then getting quotes and then going through with printing and quality control and all that stuff. It's like stuff that we didn't learn. And it was something that we discussed after graduation that like, oh, I wish we had that class. Maybe I'll go back and teach that class now. But
For sure.
Mark's got his hand raised.
Yeah, you can hear me now, I hope?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, great.
Clear.
Okay. Excellent. My personal philosophy is that everything is interrelated. And I believe that one of the problems that we have is a lack of interdisciplinary cooperation or coordination. So you've got engineering students that don't know how to screw a nut and a bolt together. And I experienced that. And my friends who are engineers that, we're all old guys, they're in positions of being able to hire young engineer graduates, and they can design an automatic transmission for a truck, but they could never put it together if you gave them a box of parts. In fact, they wouldn't know which end of the screwdriver to hold or what hammer to grab onto. And I also think that many students in any discipline do not get any kind of basic business sense. Colleges require macroeconomics, but they don't require microeconomics. And that's really what's going to have a direct effect on your ability to understand how your business that you start, whether it's a graphic design business or an auto repair shop or a plumbing business. So I think this lack of interdisciplinary encouragement, I think is a big problem. Now I'm teaching college for those of you that don't know me. I often recommend to engineering students and other students of mine the importance of taking courses that are not just required for their degree program, that they should reach outside of that, because there's a lot of information that is really useful to them in their careers. when you only listen to what the guidance counselors say, when you only listen to what your academic advisors say on a college level, and you only take those courses, for the most part, and I'm not disparaging them because I understand their position, but for the most part, I believe that they are geared to getting students to graduate. And I don't think they're as invested as folks like us are in really training people that understand thoroughly their own discipline. You know, the engineering students come out of a 4-year engineering school. They're great at math. Like Eric said, I totally agree with what you said, Eric. They graduate from a 4-year engineering school and they're great at math. They're great at CAD programs and whatnot, but they don't really understand how things are made. They don't understand how parts fit together. And I think that's a big problem. And I try to do what I can in my classes. I always set aside time in my classes to talk about things other than the subject of the course, to teach them how to be a good student, not a good student, a successful student, I should say, how to be a successful student, how to take notes, how to take an interest in things outside of the discipline. I think all those things are very important. And I think everything is interrelated. You know, I think, you know, engineering students should learn about woodworking, and automotive students should learn about machining, and machinists should learn about art and the appearance of things. You know, I've had students that work at companies that machine high value parts, and the finish and appearance of those parts is just as important as the precision of those parts, because they're high value parts. And so I think injecting a little bit of aesthetics into some of the things that are not typically thought of as being artistic or aesthetic is very important.
Yeah, cool. Eric's got his hand up. Go ahead.
Well, I
This is, by the way, the most hands up we've ever had.
Very organized.
Very
I
organized.
didn't expect this.
Good.
I don't even know if people raise their hand in my class at school.
I just thought I'd share with you a little bit about my journey, because I feel like you sort of had the same journey, and then what worked for me later on, as I tried to build up my program in high school at 3,000 kids. My first shop class, probably like most of you, was in middle school. You know, as part of an elective rotation. Made a real impact on me. I don't think I did anything particularly well, but you know, it was great. And so it was, you know, I think it was my junior year of high school. You know, everybody is required to take the Washington College test, so I took it, and I remember being so surprised when I got my results back that said, "You should be an auto mechanic." And I thought, "Whoa, wait a second! No, I'm going to college. I want to become an auto mechanic." So my senior year of high school, I had one elective slot, and so I decided to take a class on small engines. And I was the only kid in there with probably a higher GPA than C plus. But I just loved the course. But you know, and it was great fun. So I went into college, and when I found out that I could actually get paid to teach industrial arts, I thought, oh, I'm all in. So that's what I finished up in with a double major. Got my first job in industrial arts and showed up in September, and they said, "Oh no, you're teaching math." So, because that's where we need you. So that's where they put me. And but you know, fast forward to 1997, I was offered the chance to teach CAD, and I'd never done it, but you know, I learned quickly, stayed one page ahead of the kids, as they say. But the challenge was, even back then in a high school of 3,000, you didn't fill 30 seats every period. They'll find something else for you to do, the rest of the day. So what I did, and I think I kind of fell into it by chance, was that, after a year or two, I decided to take a personal day. And rather than going skiing, I took up rolled up a bunch of, you know, C and D size sheets of different things that my kids had made, blueprints, engineering projects, what have you. And I went around and visited the math classrooms. Now, there were probably in a high school of 3,000, maybe 30 different high school math classes, but those were the kids that had an extra elective spot. And
Oh my
because they weren't required to take math again and again. So I'd go and show them. I'd show them, this is what it's about. If you're interested, just drop by the room or sign up for next semester. And I ended up with more kids than I could handle, which was, I was actually teaching a 0-hour class, and I always taught during my plan period. So, and those kids told their friends. There was, a lot of you mentioned, the counselors and stuff, and I think that's important. But in our high school, we had 4 grades, we had 3,000 kids, we had 4 counselors, and really all they did were schedule changes. They didn't do any, any career counseling or anything. They were just swamped. So I never criticized them, but that's what worked for me.
Yeah.
So I not only filled up all my seats, but I filled up all my seats with a real cross section of the student population. And even so, out of 3,000 kids, I only saw 180 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So so it was still small, but it worked.
Yeah, Eric, that's awesome. So you took your day off to go around the building and advertise your class.
Yeah, but that made the other 179 days go pretty sweet.
Oh, I'm applauding
yeah.
you. I think it's amazing what you've done. This is like you're looking at a group of people that I'm sure have done some version of that in the past. That's great. That's absolutely great. Yeah, I mean, that's what has to happen. And aren't you kind of pissed that Instagram came out after you retired? Instagram would have taken care of a lot of that.
Yeah, my hashtag project of the day, it's not, PR is a lot easier these days. It's a lot easier to do PR, I think.
Yeah,
for sure.
So speaking of PR and all the ways that people can reach out, let's fast forward. Jason, you've now been a shop teacher, what, like 10 years now, I think?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Well, you probably in shop teacher years, you're on year 20 or 25.
It's starting to gray. I'm graying in shop teacher.
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No.
Dude,
No,
I'm
no,
not
no.
at you, man.
Don't try
Not
to sell
this-
us on turning gray.
Yeah.
Not this group, Ron. Eric, he said he's got 38 years and he's got plus some with his college. And we had the other shop teacher, 42 years?
Oh
He
my
was
God.
teaching?
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago he was on.
But Jason's everywhere, man. So let's get into that. So let's jump ahead. So what do you tell us? You want to walk through what you currently do and what all the things you offer?
Yeah. So my primary position is teaching at a 6 to 8 school in Madison Junior School. And I'm fortunate because I pretty much get to see every student for the most part. So that's 590 something students that, roll through my class. 6th grade, they're required, right? So I get to see all my 6th grade students, and I have a series of 3 classes called Innovation Design. And I actually think it really touched upon what Mark mentioned earlier, which is this beautiful integrative aspect, because every student comes through. How do I capture the interest of every student? I can't just say, hey, we're just going to 3D print, right? So I talk about aesthetics, entrepreneurship, and it's all about designing a product. But the core basis is, problem solving. And they kind of build, right? So my 6th grade class is just getting the students in there, design process, a refresher, what they should have learned coming in from elementary school, little bit of hand tools, drill press, some type of manufacturing, lots of paper engineering, just to kind of get in the mindset of the design process. I'm really emphasizing on failure and like being okay to fail, right?
I love that. Let me just ask you here. Should I click on the Madison one?
Yeah, go for that. Yeah, go to the Madison
Okay.
website.
All
Yeah,
right.
so there's the Madison. Then like hit the hit courses on the left hand side there.
Okay.
Right. So 6th grade, if you scroll down just a tad in the middle. Yeah, there we go. All right. So innovation design 6, right? Then 7th grade, the students can take 2 options. Innovation design 7, which, you know, builds upon that. We get way more into the modern aspects. So I do a huge biotechnology unit. We do a bit more of computer science, a bit more product design. We spend a lot of time talking about empathy in that class, right? Wow. So talking about designing to improve the life of others, right? With this prosthetic hand challenge. And then the robotics course in 7th grade really, you know, touched upon the students that have a greater passion in that computer science rather than the mechanical engineering side. And then in 8th grade, there's just so many options. So the students can take with me an innovation design 8, which is all about product design. So we start with a lot of communication and how we can't just use our words to communicate ideas. So we do a lot of sketching and some modeling, and then the students end it with this capstone: design a product, come up with a logo, come up with a marketing campaign. How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to publish it? And then there's also a really advanced JavaScript programming class, and then a multimedia design class.
Jason, this is awesome, but I have to interrupt you and slow you down for a second. I think there's a distinct thing that you do that not a lot of shop teachers do, which is super important, which is you're talking about design thinking and problem solving for someone else. And so it's not just birdhouses. It's not just, you know, scrubbing something or sanding something, which are skills, but you're actually like asking them to think about solving a problem. That's a big thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's
not a lot of shop teachers do that.
I think it's, yeah, I don't know. I think it's important. I think I mentioned this. I don't know, maybe I'll emphasize it. I was that ignorant kid saying, wait, why do I need to know this? Which is why I didn't do well in a lot of my subjects. But I thrived in those shop classes because even if I didn't really care, right? Even if I didn't love that balsa bridge, my teacher said, like, hey, this is how bridges are made. And have you crossed a bridge? Great. Like, thank the person that did that, you know? So I always try to show my students, and I'm very real with them, that, you know, I don't know if you're going to be an engineer when you walk in this door. You don't know either, right? But I do know that understanding how to make mistakes and understanding how to solve problems and understanding how technology works and understanding how the world works, like, those are really important skills, right? And I think when you put it in that real world mindset, it's you just make the school, you make it relatable. You make the students understand, like, oh, wait a minute. I think it's awesome. My 8th graders really take a step back. At least I like to think this is what I tell myself happens as their teacher, right? But I think at the end of the semester, and we're getting there, so I'll see if it happens, they take a step back and be like, wait, could I sell this? And after they make this product and they realize, wait a minute, like, I designed a thing. Like, could this actually be a company? Could I do this? It's awesome where I say, hey, yeah, you're 13 and you really could, like, you could take this idea and you really could turn it into something big, and this could be your career. And even in my programming class, I get a lot of flack, I think, where, you know, there's kind of the traditional shop, that building, and then there's the more modern shop, the computer science, robotics. Some schools do both really well. We kind of touch upon some schools, you know, kind of do one or the other. I think I try to intertwine those so importantly, because you might have a student that thrives in that coding portion and a student that thrives in the mechanical portion, but in the real world, those two kids have to work together to make our world happen, right? But I think in my coding class, at the end of it, where they make an app and they realize, wait, I could go publish this on the App Store, and I could, you know, that skill, they can immediately, you know, see how it affects their life now. It's awesome. I mean, it's important, you know? And I think that's why I don't have to deal with, like, motivating my kids, because they're into it. They can see why this matters, you know?
That's cool. That's really cool.
Here's what I ran into with parents, and maybe you do the same thing, is that, like, when I was teaching CAD in Boeing country, and at that time I was using Inventor, like, for my engineering students. Yeah. And I'd have a parent come in for open house. They say, well, shouldn't you really be teaching them SolidWorks or you know, or whatever else?
I love that.
I'd say, you know, actually, I'm not teaching your kids software. I'm teaching them how to problem solve and think.
You just touched upon my favorite thing. So I do a lot of PD, I do a lot of training. And the first question I always get ever is, depending on the PD, either, well, which language should I teach? Or which program should I use? Or which machine should I buy? Or which brand 3D printer should I get? And the answer is, it doesn't really matter. right? Like there's ones like what one fits your room. Like that's not the point. I want my students to understand problem solving and understand three-dimensional modeling and understand the ways that like stuff goes together, right? But if I, make them so committed to a single machine when they leave, I mean, that's not gonna, really help them out. I think that's so important that, when you're choosing what resources you put into your program, do the one that's going to impact the greatest population of students, right? Like do the one that's going to help you reach the most amount of your students. And then that's going to be the most successful one, regardless of, where they go from that, right?
100%. I always make a joke about, like, imagine if you had an 8-track repair class and you taught people, yeah, good. I got a laugh out of it. Good. You taught somebody, they became like the greatest 8-track repair person that ever lived. But unless they figure out how to make that 8-track more efficient, which would lead them into maybe cassettes, which would lead them into maybe digital, then what are you really teaching? And the same thing, like I do cars. I'm a car guy. I love car guy. Engines, gasoline to the bone. But unless we teach them about electric motors or maybe how to make the gas engine more efficient, we're not asking them, we're not challenging them on anything, sure, they understand the fundamentals, but you could teach the fundamentals of energy conversion, like from potential to kinetic. You could do it with a steam engine. You don't need a gas engine for that. So you could teach them a steam engine, then you could teach them gas engine, internal, and then you could teach them electric, magnetic power, which is kind of cool, and then ask them, how do you make this more efficient? That would be my question. How do you make it lighter, stronger? Just like an athlete, which they understand,
Yeah, for sure. I think the most successful thing that comes out of my classes, and this goes for both my middle school and, district, is just the fact that my students have the opportunity to fail. And I encourage it. And I kind of force it, right? And I think we're all nodding our heads like, well, yeah, obviously, right? And on the first day one, when we were saying what to expect, hi, I'm Mr. Erdreich, which is how you pronounce my last name, by the way. Here's my class, right? Here's my dog. He's adorable. What's going to happen in this class? Where you're going to fail a lot. And they're like, whoa. I'm like, no, not like an F. I'm talking about your grade, but like you're going to fail. Like you're going to make mistakes. And then I point to the stack of old computers in my room saying like, look, they failed a bunch of times, but they kept, making it better, right? And I think, in school and in other subjects, they don't have the luxury of that, right? Like a math teacher can't intentionally let their students fail because then they're not going to get through their curriculum, I mean, we have the luxury of letting students make mistakes and improve, and we have to do it in a safe way. Like we're not fooling around with machines and we're guiding them through making mistakes, right? But I know a lot of teachers that teach 3D printing, they will sit there and nitpick a design and say, oh, well, no, that won't print. And you have to change this tolerance. And oh, you have to do that. So that way when it prints, it works the first time. Me, I let the kid print it and like, wait, but it doesn't fit. Like this piece I made yesterday, that doesn't fit. Right. And I say, yeah, well, why not? I don't know. Well, did you measure that? Oh, no, I forgot. Great. Well, let's do it again. And I'm not pretending like I have all the time in the world, right? If it's final project season and I see a kid's final project is not going to do work and it's due, they're going to like the semester's ending. Yes, I, of course, as a teacher, I'm not going to like watch a kid not finish their final project. But hopefully by the time we get there, they've made enough mistakes. I don't have to say anything, So, I mean, I think that's so important. And I think that's probably like, one of the biggest things that I do in my class is I just like, even today, I have a coding thing. We're coding gravity. And my students are like, wait, I have an error message. I'm like, that's cool. Same. It's fine. Like it's okay. And that's so important. And that's something that I think this current generation isn't, I mean, it's in our nature that none of us are comfortable with making mistakes. Right. But I think this current generation has this expectation of, well, if I do it, it's just going to work. Right. No, we got to teach that problem solving, that skill to kind of overcome these challenges for sure.
Now let me ask you a question. How did you get to that point? Because there are a lot of teachers that would never let all the failure happen. They try and control it.
Well, it's sometimes I think there's a lot of teachers that can't, right? So I think I have the luxury of doing that a bit, specific with 3D printing, because I have a budget that can support that, right? Like I budget for a lot of mistakes, but then at the same time, I design my challenges to be cheap. I don't buy any kits. Like when we do the solar car project, I do not buy any solar car kits. I individually piece panels and motors and whatever. So that way I can afford to buy way more supplies than we need to foster these mistakes, you know, and that's challenging. I mean, budgets to support elective programs are impossible. And, you know, you got to work to find grants and make sure that you can get the funding and do different support to be able to do these things. So that's part of the reason that I think I'm able to do it, is I have the supplies to support that type of failure and mistake, which is tough, you know. But I think I do it because, and I have a colleague who I think has been on a podcast, Matt Guerrera, who I think was on your tour podcast, right? So he always makes fun of this because, you know, he'll say, well, Mr.E goes home and he just works, right? Because I go into my shop and I have the same tools at home and I have at school, and I live this stuff, right? So I think I can integrate it because, I mean, I really do, you know, like behind me, I just have a stack of failed 3D prints down here of all these current projects. None of that works down there. That's all broken.
Yeah.
You know? And that's just what you have to do. I mean, I think anyone who's built something, everyone sitting here knows that, you know, you're going to make mistakes. And even if you get it right, you nail it, you learned a lot and you can make it better. And I think that was the hardest lesson I had to figure out. And that's the only thing that I remember from school. That, you know, I don't remember the CAD program I learned in school, for the record. I learned Pro Engineer. I don't remember it at all, but I remember failing a lot and making a lot of mistakes. And that's the lesson I want to make sure my students remember too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm sure whatever CAD program I'm teaching them now, it's not going to be relevant, you know, in 10 years. So,
you know, as an example, like I've been a SolidWorks fan. I love SolidWorks forever. And then recently I found this thing called Onshape, and I'm just like, I don't know if I'm ever using SolidWorks ever again, because Onshape, dude, it's in real time. And then a couple years from now, maybe Onshape will be gone. So it's like, what are we teaching? You know? You know, so this is great. Mark, you got your hand up? Go for it, man.
Yeah, I wanted to comment a little bit on what Jason had to say about the fact that he budgets for mistakes. And I think that's great. And, you know, I think he's very fortunate to be able to do that. I'm fortunate to be able to kind of steer my own budget and allocate resources where I want them to go. I met a bunch of mostly middle school and elementary school teachers at Rutgers University, and I was quite surprised to find out how strapped they were from a budget standpoint. I really did not expect that. I was really quite surprised. And, you know, I think a lot of that goes to, at that level, I don't know a whole lot about how budgets are divided or money is disseminated at the elementary school or middle school or high school level, for that matter. But a lot of them, you know, they said, I'd like to be able to buy a 3D printer, but it's not in the budget. We don't have the money for it. Or I'd like to get a laser engraver and I can't afford it. You know, or they can't afford basic materials. And I was really quite surprised by that.
Yeah, that's good. Eric, you got something to say, but I definitely want to add on to that too.
Well, let me just interrupt for just a sec. You know, it's the funniest thing is that through necessity, I use a lot of cardboard. And I don't mean like I kind of use like some cardboard. Like I have so much cardboard, and I don't mean like the corrugated. I'm talking thick, one layer. I go to the steel supply store and they use it to divide their sheets of steel, and then they toss it, but it's so thick. It's like a full 16th, maybe bigger. And I use that, and we use the steel shear, you know, to cut it. And the kids can't cut it with scissors. That's how good it is. But it's great. You can make a ton of stuff with this, and then I don't care. They could break it,
so awesome,
rip it apart. I don't care what happens. You know, you know, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, there's ways around the budget because I'm not going to give them sheet metal until they get it right with cardboard, you know?
I think that's so important. When people come into my makerspace, which is awesome, they're like, wow, yeah, I like, no wonder your projects are great. And I show them my sample projects. You mentioned my Instagram. If you scroll through my Instagram, only the last 2 years were done in a makerspace. Like my first classroom was a cart with a hot glue gun on it. And that's so important. So when I talk to teachers that have a budget of $150, you know, What do you do? Well, I do a lot of paper engineering still to this day. I mean, because it's cheap, it's easy to make mistakes. Working with cardboard and bringing in and collecting donations and water bottles and cardboard is so important. And I always tell people building a makerspace not to buy a 3D printer because it's, you know, they're expensive. And if you only have one, how many students you're going to be able to impact, right? And like this, for example, I don't have enough 3D printers for every kid to 3D print a project. So right there, like they can 3D print one part of their project, but they have to incorporate other materials because A, I don't have the budget to 3D print an entire thing, but B, that adds such a challenge to it where they have to now incorporate different materials and different manufacturing processes. That was awesome. That was like a baseball batting machine. That thing went 57 feet or something crazy like that. But it's, you know, it's a challenge. But you know, the important thing isn't what your kids are building with. It's more that problem solving aspect and, you know, being able to put this stuff together using cardboard. And one of my favorite things to do is teach recycling because it's important. And because I can say, hey kids, to pass this project, you need to bring stuff in. What are you building with? Well, what are you going to bring in? You know, so they have to choose an item that would be thrown away. And then they use that as their building material.
I never thought about foam. That's cool. It takes up a lot of volume.
So cheap, dude, crazy cheap. So that's just your typical insulation foam. Crazy cheap, right? You can get 4x8 sheets for $3-4, right? And then the hot wire cutter is by far my students' favorite machine. You know, so you can cut that with a handsaw, you can cut that with any type of bandsaw or something like that. But even like a hot wire cutter with really young kids, super safe machine, and it's incredibly mesmerizing to watch students just cut out crazy shapes. And it takes up a lot of volume. I buy it in both 1 inch and 2 inch and just stock it. It's also super lightweight. So if you're doing like a solar car prototype or a dragster prototype, it's got some pretty solid properties.
That's great. Now let's get to Eric's question, but also I wanted to mention that
yeah, you can CNC foam too. Sorry, question in the chat.
Oh, can you CNC foam? Yeah, that's a good question that came up. Of course, right. I use wood, but and I haven't done
we run all of in our Tormox and stuff. We'll do either foam first whenever we do it, instead of doing our aluminum projects, or we'll use wax because you can melt it down and then redo it, right? So you can you know, cast a wax block and then melt it down, you know.
So we're all going. This is like everybody's alive here. This is good. So we're gonna get to Eric's question, but I want to mention that that Mark and Mark mentioned that. Mark Willie mentioned that you know, that the cost of materials went up during COVID for building science people and for builders, and so this idea of using a different material to make something happen, you know, you never know. Like things could change even in the real world. So it's kind of like if you could make something work and you're limited. I like limiting students. Say you can have this, but you can't have this. So like I'll give you a motor, but I won't give you a battery, or I'll give you a battery, but I won't give you a motor.
So important. Yeah. So what makes a good design challenge is constraints. And a lot of times they'll say, well, I don't want to limit their creativity. I'm telling you right now, if you say your students, go build this, well, what can I use? Anything. The designs aren't going to be nearly as creative if you say, hey, go build this. Here are your 11 items. Right. So this challenge you're looking at, they had to make some type of electronic kicking device, right? So some type of like automated ball launcher or something like that, right? Like a batting machine. And, you know, they had a limited list of materials and a limited list of 3D printer filament, and they had some electronic components and stuff, but I didn't give them a switch, right? So you're seeing part of the design was they had to build a switch to interact with it. And then they also had to make user instructions to tell, you know, how somebody, if they bought this product, how could they interact with it? And they were all testing each other's projects out, you know? So that was kind of the constraint there. And it, as you can see, like not a single project looked even remotely the same, despite the fact that they all had the same materials.
You know what's funny about the switch is I had these switches for the kids, right? And I said, okay, I'll give you, I'll give you a battery or a switch, but I'm not giving you both. And the kids would say, well, how am I going to do this without a switch? And I'm like, what is a switch? Please tell me what a switch is. And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, find out what a switch is. And then they paper clip, connect the wires, done. It's a switch. It holds it on, it holds it off. That's a switch. You know, so it really limiting the constraints. We could talk about constraints. That would be a really interesting one. Eric, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off there. Go ahead, Eric.
No, that's fine. I'm just going to share how I financed my programs through the years. I mean, back in the 90s when I had a 4,400 square foot middle school shop, I was able, I just charged the kid for materials and made a profit. Probably can't do that anymore, if the kids don't have the money. But I've in all my years, I've never had a principal where budget wasn't either political or a squeaky wheel. So in my last school, I just because it seemed interesting to me, I taught yearbook, and yeah, I mean, I enjoyed doing it. But the thing was, we self-published our yearbook, and we took on selling school pictures, and this was only a school of 300 kids, and it generated $10,000 a year. And parents loved it because we sold the yearbooks for half the cost, because we did it ourselves. But I could use that $10,000 for anything I wanted. And then in regards to 3D printers, Duke mentioned that I teach, a 3D printing class for teachers, and most of them just have like one printer or two. But what I share with them is that, when your principal's giving a tour of the building and you've got the 3D printer running, he's going to bring his guests by your classroom, because they're, I mean, what do you see in an English classroom? I mean, there's good things happening in there, don't get me wrong. But if they can see something being created while the kids are designing on the computer, that sort of thing, that's a huge magnet. And the biggest problem with 3D printing is that it's so darn slow. So, I mean, if you got 150 kids in the grade book, you're just, it's an impossible job to, to produce product for all those kids if you just have one or two printers. But you don't even need a half decent principal to be able to connect the dots, saying, hey, this is something exciting happening in my school, and something that produces visible results, not to mention the educational value. So, that helped me get more 3D printers. Just saying, you want to, you want this to, and plus, don't, we're talking squeaky wheel. If Johnny can't get his project printed because there's only one printer, well, and parents complain about it, say, well, I'd love to have the budget for that, but I don't control the budget. So you have to play a little political hardball, because the squeaky wheel always gets the grease in schools.
Well, just something simple that shop teachers could do is kind of a general thing. Is just send an email once a month. Hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we've been doing. Hi, it's the fall. Hey, it's October. Check out what we did in September. Even during pandemic, at the towards the end of one of our projects, they haven't heard from the shop teacher in a while, and I'm sure their head is all thinking, well, what's the guy we're paying this shop teacher? There's no way he's teaching shop from his house. And I'm like, yes, we actually built a car in 3 dimensions on a computer, just like they do in the real world. They use computers all the time, and we did a collaborative project. And so, but they're not going to know. So I had the kids present it. We recorded it, and they sent it. So as a shop teacher, you have to be your own PR department. And, everyone in this room knows that. But some shop teachers are probably like, oh, I got to do that too. Well, you're an elective. So if you want to fund your program, yeah.
Sure.
But get it to come from the bottom up, because that's what makes the the wheels turn.
Yeah. Mark, go ahead. You got your hand up there.
Yeah, I was going to say that myself and a colleague, what we do with our student projects is when we get something, particularly if it's something really representative of the assignment, we shoot it off to the president's office. Now, this is at the college, so a little different environment, but as much as the president's not directly controlling our budget, it's good to keep visibility going. It's good to keep what we're doing in front of his eyes. And he's been very responsive. So I totally agree with the idea of, promoting and getting the parents to see things and getting the principal and the administrators to see some of these things. So I think that's important.
And your school board.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. I was about to say, I mean, trying to get showing what we do across the whole school. So like through this Instagram, you're looking at not just my school, but the whole K-12 technology, engineering, design department, just to kind of share like, what do we do to support the entire student in Madison? And also some of my stuff is from college on here too, right? And, sharing that with the school board and the principals and the parents and, is incredibly, incredibly important. All of my school board members at every single board meeting are sitting there with a name tag that says "Made in Madison" because we made them in my makerspace. So we 3D printed and laser cutted all their name tags, and right on the back, you can't see it from the front, but from the back where our board members are sitting, they get to see "Made in Madison" because that's what you have to do. Oh, this is the prosthetic project I mentioned earlier, right? So these students are making prosthetics where I challenged them. They had to do 4 things. They had to be able to carry an egg on a spoon, but we practiced with golf balls. They had to pick up my car keys, strum a guitar, and write their name. And I made it very clear, like, listen, your hand might not, be able to do all 3 of those things. And they got to pick whether they wanted to do like a mechanical way, like strings and linkages, if they wanted to do it using electronic servos, or if they want to do it hydraulic.
It's funny that we did a prosthetic hand, not in my class, but there's another teacher a few years back that did it, and they went straight to 3D printing, but the kids didn't really understand how to do, how to make, mechanical linkages. So they weren't failing cheaply and fast enough.
Yeah.
I feel like 3D printing, people think it's like this great solution, but the problem is it is iterative, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it is kind of cheap, but it's not as fast as foam and paper and wire and spring.
Yeah, I teach, the design process, and I love using James Dyson and Dyson vacuums as my examples because they document it so beautifully. And I showed, like, does Dyson use 3D printing to help prototype their vacuums? Of course. And they have an army of 3D printers where they can print a bunch of parts overnight to test it out. But before they get there, they still make the thing out of cardboard and paper just to see if they like it, Why bother exerting all that time and effort, right? Just to test things out because it's such a quick material, and every industry does this. It's so important. And I show that to my students and I say, like, listen, I'm not just wasting your time with paper because we're a school and we don't have a big budget. Like, I'm doing it because it's a good practice prototyping method, and in some of my classes, it ends there because these are prototypes. And then for that final project, 8th grade capstone at the high school level, we really do get to go above and beyond and really try to integrate that aesthetic, final product portion into it a bit more. But it's such an important skill.
So now I want to dive into. Oh wait, Duke, did you want to add something? Looked like you were going to say something before.
Well, back to school nights, all the other teachers complain, oh, we got to go to back to school night. I love back to school night because I have everything going. Eric said 3D printer. I have the lasers going. I have the CNC routers going. I have the robots out. I'm giving keychains out because that's your time to shine.
Absolutely. You're saying, sorry if you can't hear me over all the cool stuff we have.
Yeah, you don't really have to say anything because the kids get on the remote controls and their smiles are ear to ear. Yeah. And
that's cool. That's cool. Good. That's a good point. It's time to go. It's go time. Now, I want to get into something you talked about is that you are not just teaching in your classroom, but I think you have a unique situation. I don't think we've ever talked to a shop teacher that's also a coordinator for the district. Yeah. Can you explain that position, what it is you do?
Absolutely. So in some districts, I think it's similar to like a coach or like a leader teacher, right? Some districts have that where essentially what happened, I don't know, a couple of years ago, my department was growing. So we were able to create a tech shop position in each elementary school rather than having one person who traveled, create another position at the high school, and it was great. Before I started at the middle school, there was no middle school shop teacher. There was no middle school shop program, right? Except for there was one in like the 80s and the 90s, and then it got closed until I came in, right? So the department was growing, and it basically came down to, okay, well, where do we put this now engineering department? Do we slide them into science or math And, the leader at the time, the administrator at the time said, well, I don't really think that anyone's going to be able to provide any real insight. So what do you need from an administrator? And I just said, hey, we just need somebody who understands how this shop works. So that way they know budget requirements and training requirements and can just give the teachers, the resources they need to do their jobs. And because we're a department of 7, we didn't need our own supervisor. So we created this coordinator role where I teach at the middle school at like an 80% schedule, and then I have a little bit of extra time in theory to then travel and go support those other 7 teachers, whether it be the budgets or demoing, co-teaching, training. If anything breaks district-wide, like I can be the go-to person, ordering stuff like that. I don't have like an administrative contract. I'm on a teaching contract, so I don't do any observations or any evaluations. It's not my job. But if it's like a curricular question, if a teacher says, hey, I want to build a 15-foot tall catapult with the physics team, they ask me. And I try to make that happen. And I'm the one that calls the fire department saying, can we please do this? Right. Like I can assist rather than going to some supervisor that doesn't know the inner workings. It's somebody who's kind of trained in the field that can support those curricular goals. And then I can work with the administrative team, and it's kind of double dipping, right? So if it's a building concern or it's a concern with a parent or a student, that would go directly to the principal, right? But if it's a curricular concern or a facility concern, it's something that I have the ability to support in the district. And I think we get away with it because we're a smaller district, and it kind of fit, but it's a model that's a lot of schools don't talk, right? So a lot of schools, if they have a high school, they never get time to chat with the middle school level. And there might not even be somebody in the elementary school level to chat to, right? So I think one thing that we do well, and again, we're fortunate because we are a smaller school, is I know exactly what the kids are coming into me with from all 3 of our elementary schools because I helped design that. I know exactly what to expect, and they know what I need them to come in with. And then I know exactly what's happening at the high school. So we really do like my middle school course isn't a level 1 in 6th grade. It's a level 6.
Wow.
So it's a really cool scope and sequence, and it's far from perfect. We've only been doing it for 4 years now. So we have a lot of room to grow. And a lot of the positions are new, but actually this current 6th grade class is the first class coming in that has had those 6 years of elementary school instruction in STEM or tech or shop. And it's clear, it's relevant. Like I can see those students coming in with this prior experience, and makes you wonder why isn't this the norm? I mean, it's a good model.
Well, I want to point out that there's some things you said in there that prove that we're all working pretty much in silos. Like we don't talk to each other enough. So, okay, so you said that there's 7 people, so you don't need a supervisor. That's not the case if other districts. If you have 1 person, you're a department. So I was 2 shop teachers and we had a supervisor, but that supervisor also was in charge of business.
I think what I meant to say is you don't need a dedicated, you're not big enough.
Yeah, that's
pay
true.
For the salary of a dedicated supervisor is what I meant.
Yes.
I mean, everyone needs some type of leader that they can support to help make those difficult decisions to make stuff happen. But I think what I meant to say is that as a department of 7, we couldn't afford to pay for an engineering supervisor in Madison.
Right.
Like that wasn't a thing. So we would have gotten slid into math, science, business, But
I think it's amazing what you're doing because you do need that person. So we have a science teacher, a science supervisor, but he doesn't do his own oil changes. He's not fixing his own bicycle either. So he's really just a supportive role, checks on us, this and that. But we really just like by chance help each other. I don't know what's going on in the middle school. I don't know what's going on in the elementary school. I'm a mentor to one of the other shop teachers who just got there. He's a contractor, a retired contractor, so he knows what he's doing with wood. But as far as curriculum goes, I'm helping him out. But I think that coordinator position sounds really interesting. I agree. That should be the norm because you do need someone who has a vision and can support, like you said, the budget, training, and coordination of doing these advanced projects. I 100%. I think it's great.
things that we've mentioned upon, right? We mentioned how important PR is, but we also know that the typical teacher is a busy person, right? And like remembering to document that and remembering to reach out to the Board of Ed, that's difficult. Well, that's my job. You know, I get the time to do that. So I now get to say, can you please just record a video of that so I can share it and promote it and get that out there? You know, I mean, that's so important. And technically my title is actually K-12 STEAM coordinator, which I don't oversee any of the STEAM stuff, just the T and the E part. But it means that when there's a social studies teacher or an English teacher or a math teacher that wants to 3D print in their class, or they want to integrate computer science, or I want them to integrate computer science and ELA, because we should be doing that. It lets these departments that never talk and never plan and never coordinate try to find a way to do it. And it doesn't always work out. I mean, it's incredibly difficult, you know, but we have been able to do some really cool things. Like in 7th grade, they do a probability carnival and they build these massive carnival games. They're insane. Like they're huge, insane spinning wheels where they have to calculate the probability and they give out prizes. I can coordinate time in the shop for those students to go after school to build these math projects, you know? I mean, and that's crazy. We really do build catapults with a physics team using the wood shop, right? So this coordinator role has not only, I think, provided insight where, hey, the nozzle on my 3D printer broke. Can we order it? It's not like I know like the answer to that. Yes, obviously you need a nozzle. Let me help you with that immediately so you can get back up and going. But it's also all these little collaborative things that are so difficult to schedule in the typical school day. It's easier when there's a person who's, you know, able to be that in between. And, you know, from a personal side, I love it. You know, I love the fact that I get to leave my room and just go see what's happening in the district and get to know our students and our teachers. I mean, I feel like it definitely makes me more effective because I just have a better understanding of what's going on. You know, I just have a better understanding of where these kids are coming from and where they're going to go. And I feel like, you know, I'm definitely a better teacher for it.
That's awesome, man. And it's so funny because I feel like you probably would have been doing this anyway, but you got the position to, you know, allow you some space to do that. I mean, I know on my off periods, I go see the science department and I find out what's going on. Maybe we could build something for them or whatever. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Thanks, man. It's awesome. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Go do it in your schools. Like try, yeah, it's
now,
good.
did you apply for that? Did you create it? Like how did it exist before?
Yeah, so when what was this, 5 years ago? When this was happening, it was when we were saying, all right, well, we need more, you know, there was a growth, right? There was a clear growth where the positions were happening for the elementary school. And I was on the hiring committees and we were designing, updating the shop spaces, right? Doing some renovations, and I was on the renovation committees and I was definitely a key player. And, you know, we were talking about how do we support the school? Like, how do we support this department? And I said, you know, they were saying, well, and the conversation was where does it go? What department do we slide this engineering in? And yeah, I propose, you know, it'd be really nice if I could do it, but I'm not willing to quit teaching. And then it was just kind of a back and forth. And then it became like an additional, again, I guess it's kind of like a coach. We have coaches in our district too. So it's kind of like an additional stipend, you know, a position that you have to apply for. So I apply for it every year, right? But yeah, it goes on top of my teaching.
That's great.
It's cool.
That's great. Also, of course, that wasn't enough for you. So you also teach college as well.
Yeah, that's new. That's new. I get bored easily, right? So that's new. Where, yeah, I've just been looking for a challenge. And a lot of you might know Jim Novotny. I mean, longtime shop teacher, right? So he was at Livingston for a long time, and then he was teaching at Kane for a long time, and he was looking to retire, whatever that means for Jim. And he said, you know, you might be good at this. So I took over Jim's classes at Kane University, and I've only done it for a semester so far, but I'm signed on for semester number 2. So this past semester, I taught an Arduino-based robotics and automation class, which was fantastic. I loved it. You know, for me, it was different. I've done obviously the K-12, and I've done a lot of adult education PD, but I've never had the chance to work with students that not only were college students, but also not education majors, right? These are students that were computer science majors about to go become computer programmers or, you know, some type of software developer. And for me, it was just incredibly fulfilling, you know, where I got to apply my passions and my skills in a slightly different way. And next semester, I'll be teaching a design thinking class and also a project management class, which touches upon what we were talking about earlier, where how many times do we wish somebody talked about budgeting and time framing? Well, I get to teach that. I'm going to teach like, all right, if you get hired to do an IT project, it's not just knowing what computers and software to buy. You have to know how to budget for it and plan it too. So that's going to get up there. I think my professor website is by far my most boring website, so we don't have to dwell on that one too long.
All right. Now, what else? You also have a YouTube channel, right?
Yeah. I mean, so something I'm trying to do is just document. My YouTube channel's been around for a long time, and it started with just really pretty straightforward, low attention span tutorial videos where I'd have a student who was absent, and trying to catch up a student is impossible in Shop. So I would make a 1-minute video called how to copy and paste and how to save. And I did it for Tinkercad and Onshape and Gravit and JavaScript, right? And I would do some videos like this, like how to do a full project, right? So that way, if the student was absent, I can say, hey, you know what, just do me a favor, throw your headphones on, watch videos 3, 4, 5. Because, getting a student to come after school and to catch up in a shop class is impossible, right? So it's sort of my flipped classroom. And then it actually turned out to work out for my students who were ahead, where I can say, you know what, you're really thriving here. Throw on your headphones, watch videos 13 through 15, right? And it was just this cool tutor for myself in my class, trying to reach all of my students. But it's grown to me just trying to document projects. And now, I'm working on creating like full start to finish projects. I do a lot of Instructables posts. If anyone's ever, heard of Instructables, which hopefully you guys have, right? So I do a lot of Instructables, and now I'm trying to kind of accompany every Instructable is going to also have a video, just really kind of support learning and tech and Shop, at a much bigger scale than my one little classroom,
That's awesome. That's awesome. No, that's great stuff. It's really good that you have all these resources. I find lean manufacturing is kind of what you're doing in a way. Having another teacher in the room is not, possible sometimes. So having a YouTube channel, I've been trying to do something similar. And what's really helping lately is having like self-guided tours for all the machines, you know? And it's something I'm working on. But this is great. As far as I like the word you're using is documentation. You're saying, I need to document this. I want to make it automated. I need to catch people up as soon as possible. And why is that? Is it because you're trying to rush? I would say it's because you're trying to be more efficient, trying to get kids like, cooking with gas, as they say. You want to get past the basics very quickly. Let's take some questions. We got Bloomquist. He's got his hand up. Go for it.
Yeah. So Jason, okay. So YouTube, I think I'm going to, that's going to be my next, venture social media wise. I got Instagram has been generous. I got a good documentation like you're talking about going on Instagram. And, I've also been kind of asked or I don't know, suggested to me to start moving over on YouTube as well. What do you use for your recording? Like, are you just using? I mean, obviously we got our phones, but I was kind of looking at cameras.
So I am. I'll give you the best advice I can. I'm newer at the video, right? So I think to be effective, it depends on what you're doing, right? So I rely on 2 cameras a lot. I rely on my phone lately, like for the Instagram, the quicks, hey, what's up, kinds of things. And now these modern phones are fantastic, not just like an old person, right? But I also do a lot of things where I might need to do a time lapse, especially for my bigger projects, right? Where I record myself doing something for 30 minutes and then I drop it in. And I'm trying to reduce my editing, right? So a camera that can do a lot of that for me is great. And I love my GoPros. Coming from the shop, I love my GoPros because they get covered in dust and they're tiny, and I have a magnet mount and a clip mount and a whatever mount, and they're awesome. I know that there are some really great cameras specific for YouTube. Like there's some really good Logitech Lives and stuff like that. But for me, I look for the camera that gives you good resolution. I didn't care about the microphone so much because I was doing a lot of voiceovers in my videos. So I really wanted the resolution. I wanted the battery and the ability just to throw it where I need to go. So I use GoPro Hero 9s for most of my stuff because it's a pretty affordable camera. And again, it's got built-in time lapse, built-in wide, built-in narrow. So it just does all the shooting that I need. Pretty simple. And if I did want, they do have microphone add-ons. I mean, it has a built-in microphone, but it's just okay. But you could put on like a really good voiceover microphone if you wanted to. But for me, you know, but even like looking at this shot right here, the GoPros have an automatic stabilization. So you're carrying it and it looks like it's on a gimbal and it's not a shaky cam, but you don't need this crazy gimbal. And I've tried those and I've experimented with those. But for me, I'm not an amazing video producer and I just want to get the content up there and I want it to be clean and look good. So I wanted the simplest thing. So I go back and forth between my iPhone or my GoPro, maybe every now and then something different if I'm doing something really weird, but usually that's it for me.
Perfect, because yeah, same boat. Sorry. Same boat as far as I want it quick, easy. I don't want to spend a lot of time editing. What do you I mean, I'm familiar with like Premiere and stuff, Adobe, but I really don't need anything that powerful and that advanced. What are you using for, you know, quick video editing and like putting, you know, just throwing this all together?
Yeah, I mean, the question becomes,
wise,
are you a Mac person or a Windows person?
Windows.
Yeah, so that's the challenge. I mean, if you're on a Mac, I'd say iMovie. It's free, it's quick, it's easy. Personally, I use Final Cut Pro, which is like Adobe Premiere. And I like it just because it does a lot of the autonomy for you. On a Windows, you know, Premiere is a phenomenal power program. WeVideo is a web-based program that's very iMovie-esque. And it's actually what I use with my students because it's web-based, so it works with Chromebooks.
Web-based.
Yeah, so it's powerful. I mean, it's just like iMovie. It's a powerful video. WeVideo. And it syncs with Google Drive. So if you're a Google district, your kids can just log in.
Really?
And you know, so the free version's cool. There's like a watermark, right? So if you were going to do this for your own stuff, I'd say pay for the subscription. And if you pay for the subscription, I mean, it has crazy like green screen effects, and it's a powerful program. It's good. It's really, really good. It's great
I got some extra
also
budget money I can use. So
yeah, so it's good for schools, but it is also good. I mean, I know they have some professional stuff, and it is a pretty straightforward video editing program. I would compare it to iMovie more than like a Final Cut or a Premiere, but it's got some powerful features for sure.
Don't even tell me. This is, I'm sorry, is this collaborative? Like
it is collaborative.
Oh, that's it.
So
Sold.
Yeah, so I could literally, because we're Google, so I could have my students take whatever footage they get, send it, I snag it and throw it in.
Yeah, I can't remember. We signed up for it so long ago. I can't remember if you need to first make like a school account. You know what I mean? Like you might have to reach out to WeVideo saying like, hey, we want our kids to be able to log in. You know, so that way when they go there, it enables it, right? So it's not going to be like, you know, blocked within your district or something. You might have to first make a school account. But I remember they're
Wi-Fi job site, so I can do whatever.
Yeah. But no, it's awesome. It's a super powerful program, and it works on every device. It's
so. Now, for me, so purchasing this, I'll have to purchase it myself because with the YouTube, it will be built on Teach. It won't, right, which is Instagram handle, all that stuff. But so that's mine. Like I do my Instagram, obviously, is what I do at school and what the kids do, but it's mine. So that way, if the school ever says, "Well, this is ours," be like, "No, it's not." You know, so you know, any of this like purchase and stuff. So really, the logging in wise, I mean, I guess, you know, I mean, when it comes to Google, I mean, that part's easy and stuff. But I like the fact that the kids could just upload. That's awesome. So WeVideo.
Awesome. Again, the free version they give you. I haven't used it in a little while, but I know the free version back when we were using it. The only thing it does is it puts like a little WeVideo watermark on it. You know, which like you know,
I'll paste it.
Project who cares, right? But then even the paid version, if you really did want to upgrade, it was pretty reasonable.
Sweet. Very cool. Oh man, this is awesome. And then, hey, how many GoPros do you usually
so that's the question, right? How many do you use? I started with one, and then I kept doing something. I was like, all right, you do something twice, so you get it from 2 camera angles, you know, which is the most ridiculous thing when you're sitting there behind the scenes and you cut something, you're like, all right, wait, let me just go cut it again. So you pretend like it happened to make it look good. I think, I mean, it depends on your projects, but I think 2 cameras is ideal. But if you have an iPhone and a GoPro, you can set them up, right? I think the most I've ever used at a time is 3, but I have a couple things in the pipeline coming up with like 4 or 5 cameras. But the good news is I have friends with GoPros, and I just I borrow them for extended periods.
Nice. Well, because what I can do
periods of time.
So what I had a time lapse camera, and I dropped it, and it fell down to the bottom of the, well, let's say fell about 8 foot, hit concrete, and now I do not have one. It's supposed to take impact, but it did not handle. It wasn't a GoPro, but it also wasn't a cheap one. But because ideally I want to set back up. Oh, because like I said, we're on job site, so I want an overview of the entire time lapse job, and then of course I'd be doing like kind of the close-ups and diving into the, you know, all the installation, whether it's a product or technique.
One thing that's what you definitely want to look into is battery life, right? So you definitely want to look into battery life. So I know that the GoPro that I have, you can, you know, run it off battery or run it plugged in. So when I do a time lapse, or if I'm 3D recording a 3D print, you know, for 36 hours or something, it's plugged in. It's not on battery life. But I know that there's a couple GoPros that are designed specifically to last like 3 or 4 days for time lapse. You know, so if you plan on doing those extended ones, you know, definitely look into that. I think that might be a factor for you for sure. Because I know that my GoPro, if I'm recording at 4K, not time lapse, just recording, it'll last for like 45 minutes, which isn't very long. But then I have 5 batteries, so I'll, you know, pop in different batteries between recording if I'm out and not plugged in.
Now, yeah, go ahead.
No, I would reach out to time lapse cameras again and see if they'll either fix that one or send you a new one, because that's the one thing I found with my time lapse camera, as far as it lasting 30+ days on a set of batteries. You know, if you set it up right time wise, you know, that was the one nice thing.
Yeah, it was working great, and I dropped it, and like it turned. I don't know. I didn't even think it was that hard of a hit, but yeah, whatever.
But
yeah, maybe
one thing, you know, I like
take
about
care of.
longevity as far as their batteries and how long you can shoot with the time lapse cameras as opposed to the GoPro.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, 100%.
Now, Eric's been waiting patiently. He's got a question. Yeah, go for it, man. Oh, just unmute yourself. I'm sorry, Eric. There was a little background noise before, so
There we go.
There you
How's
go.
that?
Go for it.
Okay. Yeah, it's just more of a comment. You know, I started recording equipment demonstrations back in, say 1990 from a middle schoolers, and I had the school's first VCR, if you remember those. And so I, you know, I teach a course on YouTube. I teach a course on video production, and my suggestions would be that you know, YouTube is great. The biggest complaint I get from my students is nothing that anybody controls is the ads. So if you're using an LMS like Canvas or Schoology that will actually host the videos so that the kids can stream them via the LMS, then you get away from that. But I probably have thousands of YouTube videos that I've made, and I wish I'd had the foresight way back when to keep them all super organized, but you know, I can still find them. In regards to video editing programs, and by the way, Jason, I love what you're doing, you know, in your district. I mean, that's just awesome. But you know, before time runs out, I'd love to learn more about the catapult in the fire department. So,
well, currently, actually, fire department, we have a firefighting robot coming up. So,
yeah. But when it comes to, you know, I mean, Jason mentioned iMovie, which is great. I'm currently writing a course on WeVideo, which I think is fantastic. But if you want to buy your own teacher license, it's $99 a year. If you want to skip paying $99 a year and you're a PC person, then I would recommend OpenShot, which is an open source nonlinear video editing program, which is great. And then also Hit Film Express, which is free, and it's much like Adobe Premiere. But
Cool.
you know, most of us just aren't interested in that much power. You know, you want to record what you're doing. You want to quickly edit out the ums and the ahs and the, you know, the phone ringing in the background or your dog barking, whatever. And then it's good enough, you know, for what it's for. Because if you're looking at producing, you know, the next potential Oscar nominee for a documentary, you're just not going to have the time to do it. So just, you know, just grab those and then post them on YouTube or your LMS, and then just roll on to the next day.
Well said.
Yeah, I've got a question, kind of discussion about, you know, if someone's diving into YouTube, you know, here's the thing. It's like, it takes a while to build a channel. You don't want to spread yourself too thin. And I've just had the, you know, I just kind of went for it, and I put all my stuff on my channel, even though some of it's for my school and some of it's for me, but I don't put anything like, you know, silly on there. It's the genre is shop teacher, right? Or making something, whatever. Okay. So, you know, and also you might switch districts. You never know what's going to happen. And so Jason, would you treat it the same as sort of the Instagram? It's your Instagram, but you're using it to help teach kids at that particular district?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting how you say that. I think when you look at teacher social media, there's two walks, right? There's kind of what we got going on right here, where it's the at Mr. Erdreich or at, you know, at tech shop, whatever, right? And it's just promoting these awesome projects. And maybe there's some plugs to Madison or your school or whatever, but it's just like promoting, you know, like the video from today, that first video, my ridiculous sweater. That's just me saying like, hey, shop teacher, don't forget to take out your filament before you go to holiday break so you don't kill your 3D printers, right? And like, you know, I'm in Madison, I'm in my school doing that, but it's just me reminding folks about that, right? So that's Mr. Erdreich giving you that tip. Or you'll have the teacher that's called like, you know, Miss Smith, room 105, right? And it's the classroom social, you know? And there's definitely this discrepancy where some districts are going to say, well, hey, you know, we kind of own that content because you're doing that here, versus, you know, where I'm at, I'm making most of this content, you know, outside of my general work, where it's me, it's my content, it's my channel, you know? And I don't really know if there's a right or wrong. I think it depends on how you want to approach it. I think if you do want to go the fully branded, where it's Miss Smith 105, and I'm making this up, I don't know who that is, right? You have to make sure that you keep that clean and cut, and it's only relating to that, right? Like you're only posting stuff from that class that's relevant to that. You're not going to post a cute dog photo or whatever, right? Where like me at Mr. Erdreich, I'll post something from my class, I'll post something from my college, I'll post something from this room right here when I'm making something cool, because it's me promoting this genre of shop tech, what's up. And I think you just have to stick with that theme and make it pretty clear. You know, you'll see people put as a description saying like, oh, I teach at such and such and such. Or for me, it just says I'm an educator, designer, and whatever else I said, maker or tinker or some nonsense, right? You know, where you're just branding it as what's going on, you know, like that's not my classroom. That's just happening in my school, right? So I think you got to choose which direction. And I think you have to stick within that direction. And if you want to do multiple things, you might want to make multiple channels, right? You might want to make multiple social medias, multiple channels where you can brand it, and keep those things pretty clear to make sure you're attracting the right audience and also sending the right message.
Definitely have separate YouTube channels for whatever you want. I mean, you're the content creator, and yeah, it's kind of a gray area if you're doing it on school time, but don't post everything on your own personal YouTube channel. You know, create one for, well, create as many as you want. It doesn't really, it's not that difficult to do. And then you've got it and you can share it. Playlists are also incredibly powerful. You know, which helps your students. You know, like if you're teaching woodworking or 3D printing or whatever, you can put a particular video in multiple playlists,
Yeah.
Which makes it easier for your students to find content.
Yeah, for sure. Like me personally, I don't have any personal social media, right? So everything is just my shop. But I think like if you scroll down, this is what Eric was just describing, right? So if you check this out, right? So that's like a full find a scroll down a little bit. Where's like my Tinkercad thing? I don't know. Like so if you found like the Tinkercad playlist, right? If you like yeah, if you click on like well, I can't even navigate my own channel these days. I don't know. Pick on some random thing. Let's see. Yeah, learning programming in Scratch, right? Click on that one right there. Okay, so this, if you look on the left, on the right-hand side, right, that walks you through in a methodical way to learn Scratch. From
That's
logging
cool.
in to making an if statement, and you can jump around, right? You can go, and again, the way that I make my videos are short and sweet and just like, here's what's up. Or back on my channel, it'll also categorize. So somebody who's scrolling, you know, it groups computer science together, it'll group 3D printing together, right? So it kind of categorizes that. So if you scroll, yeah, no, go back to home, right?
Okay.
If you scroll down here, right, it kind of groups builds with 3D printing versus, right? So it just allows people to kind of travel. And then if you're searching, right, if you're not actually going to land on my channel, but you're just searching for things, YouTube doesn't even really do tags anymore. Like they'll pull up searching based upon the title and the description to make people, you know, find where they want to end up being, you know? So being able to categorize all that is I think going to help people find your content.
Yeah. What you name the video is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
Because like Jason said, they don't do tags. So, you know, you just make the title of the video filled with, you know, the course description and, you know, whatever you want. You know, and then, you know, as far as building a YouTube channel, I mean, I've had mine for years and I use it pretty much exclusively for my Fresno Pacific classes. I don't care if anybody subscribes or not. You know, it's just, you know, it's just there for whatever I want. And I upload different screencasts and while I've got the mic here, I'm getting back to video editing. If you're going to spend money on any program, I would recommend Camtasia, which is it's a screencasting program, but it's also a video editor. So it just makes it so easy to record things on your screen. And if you want to import any other video from your GoPros or whatever, it's very easy to use, very easy to annotate, special effects. You can edit the audio. It's just great, and they do have education pricing, so it's not you know well, it just kind of does it all, and I paid for it out of my own pocket for 10, 15 years.
It's awesome.
I'd like to make a suggestion to Matt too, if I could. We often focus on cameras for YouTube and the visual quality of what we're creating. I think the audio should not be neglected. If you're going to speak about something, your audio needs to be clear. You can have a lower resolution camera, but if you have low resolution audio, it's going to be really annoying. I know, you know, I've seen visually wonderful YouTube videos that had terrible audio, and they're really annoying and very difficult to understand. Conversely, low resolution video with high quality audio, whether it was voiceover later on or whether it was live sound capture, really is much more effective. So don't neglect your audio. With that in mind, my recommendation for a camera is I bought a GoPro 10, and the 10 has significantly improved audio built in. So if you want to keep it simple and you're reasonably close to the camera, you can, you know, you can get pretty decent audio out of this just the way it is. But it does include, there is available other kinds of microphones and, you know, GoPro's own stuff that attaches the audio module or whatever they call it. I forget now. Now they got the 11 out too. So, but I started out with, Jason, you said, I forget what it was. Would you start out with a 7 or a 6 or something?
I started out with the 4,
A
but
4.
now I'm loving the 9. I mean, the 10's great though. I saw that. When I was going to buy, I was between buying the 8 or the 9 at the time, and the 9 was just such a huge leap forward. And I think the 10 just takes the 9 and makes it that much a little bit better. Like they just kind of tweaked it.
I think all the 10 did was kind of fix some glitches that were in the 9. So I think you're buying the 8 was the way to go. I started out with a 3 Plus, and I recorded so much stuff on a 3 Plus, and it worked out really well. And the audio was okay. I often would record things with the camera, and then right next to it, I had my PCM digital audio recorder, but that's a whole nother animal. We don't need to get into that, but don't neglect your audio. That's my takeaway anyway.
Well said.
I can't agree more with what Mark said. And I mean, you turn on the TV and, you've got ever since the pandemic, everybody's zooming in, and it sounds like they're in an echo chamber, and that could all be fixed with a mic, clip-on mic that costs less than $20.
Yeah, true.
Nice. Let me now. Oh, Matt, you got your hand up? Go for it.
Yeah. So, do any of you guys have because the school bought us, all the teachers, walk around mics to have on us on our person when we're needing them, when we're recording, say you're in your class, so you could be in the front of the class and you had a microphone connected. When you guys do video, do you just rely strictly on the camera mic or an add-on mic to the camera, or do any of you guys have like clipped on? Because I know we've done stuff for
great question.
Like we had to build show or whatever, or off-site dirt with Mark and Audrey, you guys. For when we did their interviews things, we all were clipped on and stuff. So have you guys done the ones connected to you as you're walking around? I don't know if I would do it a lot, but I'm sure I'll have it.
Yeah, I have
being part of it, but
I have a Sennheiser wireless lavalier that I use when I'm walking around and I have to describe things that are oftentimes I'm shooting stuff by myself, so I had a camera static on a tripod, and then I'm walking around describing things or pointing the stuff. But I use the microphone in the camera pretty often, usually when I'm holding the camera in my hand so that I can direct it. Again, most of the time I'm shooting stuff by myself. I've had a microphone set up separately. Ron and I have worked on some videos for him, and that's what we used then. And so, I had another camera, a different camera that I used for shooting that, and with a separate microphone. So it really depends on the situation. I think you can get away with an awful lot just with the built-in microphone on the camera, at least to start with anyway. And there's no reason to spend $1 zillion on a whole bunch of other stuff until you have a more specific need for it. And then if you have the budget, then you buy it. So
the only time for me,
we have one, like it's sitting in my truck. The school bought it for us, and I assume it links up to about anything. I don't know. I've literally never taken it out of the box.
The only time that I've ever had mic issues is when I'm sitting here and I have like 4 3D printers around me, and the microphone, I usually use a blue Snowball is the one that I like when I'm just at a desk. Right. It's simple, it's USB, it's clean, right? But it'll pick up the fan noise of the 3D printer, right? Which isn't loud, but it picks up that frequency that when it's in the thing, in my editing software, it's so incredibly loud. And that's probably one of the main reasons why I love Final Cut Pro over like an iMovie, because I'll just say, hey, this one tiny little frequency right here, that's a fan noise, make that go away. And it'll cut that one machine noise. And when I record myself doing, I think it wasn't my bandsaw, but maybe it was my scroll saw or something, like just having that one noise that was picked up. And that's where I found that a camera mic wasn't as effective, but in general, if I'm out, like I said, a lot of times I won't really use my GoPro for mic. I'll use my iPhone for a mic, or I'll end up plugging in the snowball or something, depending on what I'm doing. Although I think Eric holding up the AirPod was a pretty good emphasis of if you're walking around, you just need like a quick portable mic. That's not
the omnidirectional microphones pick up sound from all around. So that's when you're going to run into that problem. If you can't avoid that, then you need like a shotgun microphone or something that's more directional. But yeah, we've all run into those. I agree with you about Final Cut Pro. You can really get in there and edit your audio and tweak the audio besides the image, which I think is very important.
And easily. I'm not a pro video editor. I'm not a pro, but
So good.
No, I was just saying I'm not a pro. And I think there's a lot of programs that let you do it. I think Final Cut makes it like painfully easy to say.
Easy, yes.
This one tiny little noise, just make it go away, please. That little thing.
I agree.
So Matt, what were you gonna say? Sorry.
I was gonna say, yes, me and Mark, we held up our Blue Yeti, whatever microphones, and this thing can literally, maybe you guys probably heard it, like my kids can be down the other end of the house being loud, making noise, and like if I'm doing a recording or a podcast on somebody else's and I listen back, like I'll literally hear the kids like down the hall. It's amazing how much these things pick up.
Yeah.
From not even being close by.
Yeah.
So this is really good. Like there's like a lot of these techies on the shop class tonight, so we're getting into the weeds of this. But let's switch topics for a second, because I think that what we could do is we could have a how to do social media for shop teachers. That could be like a whole other episode, So is there any other part, Jason, that you want to highlight, before we kind of wrap it up?
Yeah. But I'm afraid to do it because it could be a 5-hour conversation. So I'm going to keep it light. And Ryan, this is something that we've talked about. And this is like, connecting with companies and corporate, right, to support what we do. And I think it comes down to like, how do you provide that meaningful experience, right? And contests are great. We touched upon it. Telling my students that they work for some hypothetical company is great. Like, and I don't always love to do company names. And sometimes I make a joke of it. So right now we're making a solar powered car for an unnamed electric car company that's getting a lot of bad flack for their batteries that keep catching on fire. Right. Let's not say any names, but you're hired and you're working for this company. Sometimes I'll do stuff like that. Right. And I'll say that they work for this and, I give them. But I think we need companies to do more of that support. Right. I mean, there's so many companies like Samsung and Dyson that are doing awesome design challenges and awesome foundations to support shop and engineering tech and engineering ed in schools. And teachers need that, and they can get funding. And if they say, hey, there's this cool contest being hosted by Microsoft, right? And Microsoft actually is another one. If anyone hasn't seen like MateCode by Microsoft, amazing resource, right? We need more of that, So I think one thing that I want to give a shout out to is Lowellsbot, 3D printer company, US based, awesome group of people, awesome company. I started working with Lowellsbot during the pandemic because I reached out to them saying, hey, I love you. I have you in my house. I have you in my school. But I need you to do more to support schools. Like, I think you could do a lot more to help teachers teach 3D printing effectively. And it's actually what we talked about tonight, where we said, one teacher with one 3D printer isn't going to impact 500 students, right? So with Lowellsbot, we created Lowell's Lessons, which are just free lessons on how to do a design challenge with engineering practices and 3D printing. Without having to 3D print the entire thing. And it was just this cool thing. Yeah, so there's a couple clips right there. Like grab that thing with the Play-Doh right up there. Go up a little bit.
This one?
But yeah, click on that. So that was the cylinder seals Lowell's lesson right there. Yeah, that thing. Right, where it's talking about here's the whole website, right? So this is completely free. You don't have to own a Lowellsbot. You don't even have to have a 3D printer. It's a design challenge by this company with a lesson plan and standards and a handout and an activity and a rubric to say, hey, go teach your students like meaningful stuff, like teach them how to make tools or teach them how to make stamps or teach them how to make solar energy. And it was this cool thing from this company to support schools. And then they're also backing it up with, I know.
Oh, wow. It's a drive.
Okay. So they give you, go back for a second, go back and like click on the actual curriculum. Like where's the, the lesson plan, impression stamps and cylinder seals lesson plan. Click on that. Right. So it's going to be a PDF. That, I mean, I can't say it's beautifully made because I made it, but I think it looks pretty sweet, right? And it walks you through everything. So it's got a photo, it's got standards, it's got general topics, it tells you how long it's going to take, but every single model you see, every single thing comes like for free. So you can download those 3D models as samples to show your kids as they're designing the challenge. And it talks about like, how could you do this without a 3D printer? And how could you do this with first graders instead of sixth graders? And, you know, it's just a very real world way to teach shop. So when you have teachers that are looking for things to do, this company is now trying to back you, and it talks about design process. And I think we need more of this, right? We need more support, you know, for teachers that are new to the game, to make teachers want to join the game, right? To get people excited about teaching these types of things, because we need more. And also to get companies to support our schools so we can have these resources and do this awesome stuff. This also led to the newest Lowellsbot, which is the Sidekick, which is their most affordable 3D printer, which is important, right? To be able to make these types of resources more attainable for schools with smaller budgets. And again, just pointing out like how to do it with, you know, if you don't have a 3D printer, like how could you still do this type of design process? But this is just one example. So I think one thing that's important that teachers should look to when they're looking for projects or looking for support, and I know, Matt, you mentioned Harbor Freight, is, you know, look for companies that are working to support schools, because there's a lot, and hopefully there'll be more. And also reach out to a company. Lowellsbot started doing Lowell's lessons. I reached out to them saying like, hey, this would be cool. You know, so if you have an idea, if you have a product in your classroom and you want more support, reach out to the company and see if they'll do it, you know?
Yeah, I agree 100%. You know, the thing is that the shop teachers, they're really kind of like an amazing resource. You have a person that can handle introducing new design challenges. You have the kids that are so creative, and these companies, you know, really they should just tap into the shop teachers. It would help the students. It would help the shop teacher. It's going to help the company because it's going to sell more products. I mean, I use SolidWorks because SolidWorks was taught to us in college. You know, anything that you're using in college or using in a school, you're going to use it in industry. It's just like a very simple thing. You might build upon it later, and then those people might come up with something new, and they'll end up working at your company. They'll help you build your community. It's about building a community.
For sure. You know, I know that Lowellsbot, their hope is like, listen, you can access those lessons for free. They're right here on their website. You don't need to have a Lowellsbot or even a 3D printer. But obviously their hope is, hey, if you like this type of product, when you do want to buy a printer, like maybe you'll consider buying a Lowellsbot, which I personally would recommend, you know. And that's so important. I know that they're working pretty closely with myself and Instructables to start to put some Instructables contests out there. You know, it's important to give your students that meaningful real world experience that they can relate to and that they're excited about. And there's just so many different ways to do it. There's not one good, solid lesson for any one class that's going to interest all your kids. You know, and I think we touched upon a lot of that, really, those good conversations throughout this entire podcast tonight, which I think is just so important.
Nice.
And I think to end this, go to my website, right? So I think to end this, I mean, check out my website, because that's where all this stuff is grouped. So if you're looking for resources, and I wrote down like 15 different things tonight, so thanks, guys. I'm going to add that to my resources page. Lots of cool different video programs, but like, you know, all this stuff should just be shared. So if you have these cool ideas, if you use these programs, publish it or send it to me and I'll put it out there so more teachers will be able to find it. One thing we talked about, grants, like that's so hard to find grants and funding, but if you scroll down just a little bit more, you'll see like 50 different grants and competitions that are available.
Wow, look at this.
Yeah, you know, just different recommendations. So it's all of us, I think, we working with these machines. I have a lot of friends who are professional designers and work with 3D printers, and they'll talk about, you know, they'll mention to me, they'll say, oh, well, Lowellsbot, they're fine, but really you need a Stratasys. And I'll say, no, I had a Stratasys in my classroom, but it never worked because I had 11-year-olds using it. But my Lowellsbot always works, right? So I think, you know, we put these machines through such an incredible real world pace in terms of everything, not just 3D printers, but saws and drills and all that, you know, are the makerspace and the education environment is one of the most abusive environments. So our recommendations are pretty meaningful, I think.
Well, yeah, we make them teenager proof.
Yeah. So share that, you know, and get those resources out there. And that's something that I think personally going into the new year, I'm trying to do a lot.
Awesome. And, you know, another thing we can do is collaboration.
For sure.
Across platform, you know, across, you know, Instagram makes it really nice for collaborations. And you can always have stuff like this where we discuss a topic. You're welcome back if you want to bring in something you want to highlight.
Guys, this was great. I apologize that it's taken so long for me to end up on this thing, but
no
I'm coming back. It sounds good.
We're gonna make we're making the rounds. We enjoy this. I think it it just became a thing on a Wednesday night, and it's a lot of fun because we get to watch each other grow. That's the cool thing, is that I get to watch Bloomquist build his house and grow and add more dynamic to his house. And I'm like, wow, they're into building science. I knew nothing about building science. Now I get to watch Jason, and he's doing stuff where he's all computer science and product design. Very cool, And so we get to watch all these teachers grow. It's a very cool thing to do. So anybody who's interested in sharing with the community, we're here. It's a cool thing.
Ron, every once in a while we meet up in person as well.
That's true. We did a maker camp. That was awesome, but I think we need our own meetup. We should have our own camp. We have to do a planning session. That would be pretty cool. And Mark Willie, not a shop teacher, but industry pro who supports us in the building science world. Jason, I don't know if you know about the T-Stud.
I'm hoping, based on what Duke said there, Ron, we could go to Taylorville, destroy one of Matt's houses, and then have his students renovate it. So all the shop teachers come and destroy it, and then the kids get to rebuild it. What do you say, Matt?
Yeah. Hey, actually, you know what? I have a perfect house I'm sitting in right now that you guys can come beat up, and let's get some funding, and we'll do a little remodel here.
You know what? Some construction projects I'm afraid of, and that's the one where there's wives involved. So Carmen, we're not doing that idea.
She's begging for the next storm to come through, so we knew a complete remodel.
Well,
and
the old saying is,
once you learn all the building science and comfort of a home should be, and you really start to hate your house. So,
yeah, I have to say, I don't know if we're on next week, but I believe this is the final show of 2022.
Yeah, no, we're going to take a break next week.
Jason and Eric and Mark, some of the guys I really haven't met before, but all you guys and Ron, Duke, Nick, Matt, this was a great culmination for the year. There's a lot of dynamic parts of this that I wasn't expecting tonight. It's just absolutely brilliant. I'm very thankful that we had this high note. I'm not even going to celebrate a holiday now. This was my holiday.
No, Mark, that's awesome. And Mark's great because and Matt has brought the building science to the Shop Class podcast. If you saw this other piece to the puzzle here, this is a stud that has a thermal break in the middle, so it doesn't transfer energy. And I'm like, what? I'm in the car world, and I'm like, what is that? So
that's actually Matt's. That's the project that his students built. Oh, that's their house that they built.
That's awesome.
That's incredible. And they measure the energy. That's the cool thing, is they do the red door of truth, which would be in Matt's Instagram. And this thing is so much fun. This will measure the pressure, whether or not your house is holding pressure or not.
Hey, Ron, your magic word is the house is pressurized and depressurized to 50 pascals. As soon as you say that, you got the audience right then and there. Nice.
And it's interesting about energy transfer and whatnot, because I'm sitting in a house that if it's windy, you could drop a feather and it'll move. So anyway, just to highlight all these people, then we meet interesting people who just drop in like, 40 years experience. Eric Westland just jumps in the podcast. Awesome.
Well, let me just say that I've really enjoyed this, but I want to curse Duke and all the rest of you for making me want to go back into the classroom tomorrow. It's and my last question is, Is this a podcast that I can subscribe to watch past issues? It's a video podcast, but how do I do that?
Okay, so
Good
right
question.
now it is only on YouTube. Well, it's mostly on YouTube.
Okay.
My goal for coming up is to get all this on Spotify. We got like maybe 10 episodes on Spotify, but this is all on YouTube right now. And crazy stuff like, okay, so we did Tormac last time. Actually, I have a few that I need to publish. We did an electric car conversion that's faster than a dragster.
Ron,
yeah.
didn't we do one on Boeing or someone that worked
Yes.
at Boeing?
Yes, we did. We interviewed a teacher right here, Evan Thomas. He works in Seattle area. And we did a great episode with him all about teaching CNC. He did a shop tour. We got a shop tour out of this one. And that was cool. Oh, that's the, there we go. Here's in the shop, walking around the shop. Let's see. There we go. He's walking around talking to us. That was pretty cool. We've had a lot of shop tours, which are cool. And, we've got some great episodes here. We even interviewed Jimmy DiResta. But if you look at our popular one, right, believe it or not, the most popular right now is an electric powered Airstream portable coffee vendor. And he made his own setup. So no noise, no generator noise, no generator noise at the coffee station. So pretty cool stuff here. We've even talked to someone from Hawaii who distributes automotive paints. Just all over the map, wild. And this is the episode about the NASA engineer. And this one is actually really interesting because she is the coordinator for this program, and they are doing it. They just sent a capsule around the moon and back, and it landed. So next time they're sending humans, and they're going to stay. It's called the Artemis Project. And, that was really cool. So anyway, yeah. So Eric.
Yeah, I just found it, so I'm good. Thanks.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just said I just found it on YouTube, so
cool.
That's what I needed. Thank you.
All right.
Eric,
I was going to ask some of the regulars here, if you go back to open one of those videos, maybe open the DiResta one.
Sure.
It right there where your cursor is, Ron, if you bring it to the right, over to the clip button.
Oh yeah, you can just click clip.
So if you put a clip in there and then you have to add the name on top. So during the stretch of Friday through about the 2nd of the year is when these platforms like the Facebook and the LinkedIn are highly, highly active. If you guys are rewatching some of these and you do this clip portion and you share it, and hopefully you tag the presenter and you tag Shop Class Podcast, it will really help the growth. This is the largest growth period of people just sitting on their butts, pressing their tablets and phones. I've never rocketed more. Oh yeah, this was us from tonight. I've never rocketed more than during this period.
So then you come in here and you could just put that, you could make a post and say, hey, right. I recommend this clip. And then what's great is it's only a 1 minute clip. And then you don't have to edit anything. You just choose. And then you could say, start a post and make it. I'm not going to make it now because I don't know. I didn't get the
It literally takes less than 40 seconds to grab your clip, name it, and upload it to Facebook and a LinkedIn. Of course, you can't upload it to Instagram. But you could turn around and you could take the YouTube one and you can make it a link and you could add that to your Instagram story. It's the only place on Instagram where a link brings you progress to the and one man outfits out there have really big followings as a result. So I'm just giving that tidbit because this is your 2-week period of the Facebook and the LinkedIn. And since we don't have these shows, that means you're saving 2 hours per week. So that time you have to donate to the promotion of Shop Class Podcast. Otherwise, we have to send you an invoice.
There you go. You got your orders from Mark.
Well said.
No, it's cool. It's good. LinkedIn's kind of cool. Actually, with something else I've been doing is adding students, asking students to post their work. And so this is a student explaining the self-guided tour for the drill press, and then they get to experience. Believe it or not, lean manufacturers will they will actually watch this and comment. This is crazy. I never realized there was almost 5,700 impressions on this post.
That's a huge impression. The other impressionable part is, Ron, there's many districts. I think Tim's is one of them, where the students and the teachers are not allowed to cross share this. So the more interaction from programs that allow the sharing of what's going on in the classroom and the trade programs, that is the influencer to the communities that are saying no. Because now you're like, hey, look, this guy in Jersey, right, has 5,000 impressions and his post has only been up for 3 weeks.
Check this out. Also, who you reach. I did not realize this until just now. This is a engineer from Rivian commenting on my students' work. Pretty interesting. Okay, this guy's like, hey, where's the safety glasses? Getting burned on that. But what they're going to do next is have it printed out on papers so that you don't have to go to the laptop. He was looking at the laptop for what's next on the self-guided tour, which is not ideal. Anyway, there's your Jason interview and your social media all in one. This is a big episode.
The unthemed episode.
Yeah. As always, we get off topic. That's
Guys, I had a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, this was so cool. Thank you so much. We're going to end the recording right here. Shop Class Podcast. Thanks everybody coming in. We got Nick. We got Duke. We got Mark Balzarette. That was cool. And we got new Eric. We got Mark Willie, and Jason. And we had Rafi here. This is great, man. Thank you so much. All right.
Happy holidays to everybody.
Yes.
Yeah. Merry Christmas.
See you in the new year.